So welcome everyone. Welcome to Think Outside the Stocks. My name is Madhvi Nadechen. I'm your host today. And today we are going to talk about comparison between single family homes to be a landlord versus being a passive investor in multifamily syndication type of investment. So thank you for joining everyone. Again, welcome. Welcome to this Thursday evening with Think Outside the Stocks, single family versus multifamily investing. It's a comparison. Before we go ahead, I would like to say that this is information and education purpose only. These are our personal opinions. So if you are seeking an investment and you want to get advice from your financial advisors, tax professionals, lawyers, please feel free to do that. This is not an offer to investment. This is just an education. If there is going to be any investment, it's going to be formal offer will be through a ppm. That's the formal documents for the investments, and the examples contained in this presentation today, they are purely informational and point in time, so please keep that in mind. About me, my name is Madhvi Nade Jain. Most of you actually already know me, but for you who are joining in new with Think Outside the Stock, this series, I'm the president and wealth strategist at Think Outside the Stocks. I help investors with a twofold approach with making their savings efficient using infinity banking system, as well as the high growth and risk managed investing options with multifamily investments. In my past life, I worked in IT industry with most of the time top five consulting company, about 17 years or so. And in 2015, I started my journey into the alternate world of investments. And when I found out, a couple of these strategies which were so strong and they had such an impact in my life, I became very passionate about sharing with others. And that's the passion. That's the child. The Think Outside the Stocks is out of that passion of sharing this information and also helping investors implementing these both strategies. I have, with me, with my husband, we own a rental portfolio across the different markets, single family homes, Airbnb, also multifamily. But if you ask me, truly, the education is my passion. So today, what are we going to talk about? Today, we're going to talk about comparison of being a landlord in a single family home versus the multifamily limited partner, as that is a passive way of investing in multifamily. And we will compare, the whole acquisition process, the renting, management, maintenance process, the market cycles, how these two asset classes behave with market cycles, the scalability, tax advantages, diversification, and asset protection when it comes to this type of aspect, right? There is still a lot, but I'll try to cover as much as possible today. If you have questions, you can always reach me and schedule that call with me. There is in that chat window, there is that Calendly link if you want to just schedule that call and get in touch with me. Okay, so before we get started, let's understand this asset class. Being a landlord, simply I'm talking about single family rentals, or you could be be owning duplex or fourplex also. But typically for real estate, the first step most of the investors take is being a landlord of a single family home. Either you are moving up to the next home in your life and you rent out your previous home, or you buy or purchase a new property, going through the whole system of purchasing and finding this investment property in different markets, and you enter in this investment world of the passive investments being a landlord. So that's the single family. And a multifamily is generally 5+ units. And just by show of hands, if you could just tell me that, have you heard about the word of multifamily and what syndication is? And if not, then I can just describe a little bit more about what the syndication also is, right? Thank you. And so generally multifamily units are 5+. The true economies of scale start at 100+ units, right? So does that mean that as a group you invest into, like, buy a property which is 150 units or 100 units and start managing together? That's not how we do it. For the syndication purpose, when you are trying to invest passively in multifamily syndication, You actually utilize the expertise from somebody else, the syndication team, who has been doing it for a period of years, and they have the expertise, they understand the markets, they do perform thorough analysis before moving into this investments, and you as passive investors get to leverage their experience. So syndication simply is about bringing two type of people together. One is with the intellectual resources, that is the experience and the expertise, that's the syndication team, and the other is the one with capital, so the limited partners, that's the passive investment term, by the way. If you are a passive investor, that is a limited partner, you bring in the money to the table and utilize that expertise, so that you kind of create that team together. With limited partner and the syndication team, you kind of have that 25% to 30% of the amount of money that's needed to move into the investment. So for example, if it is a $10 million investment, 2.5 million to 3 million is what you will bring to the table together, and the rest of it is going to be as a leverage, that is loan from the bank. And that's when you move into that asset, purchase that together, and manage that multifamily asset. So that's simply put, that's the process. So today we are going to talk about starting that acquisition process, how these two are different. The acquisition process, the renting, managing, taxes, appreciation, scalability, diversification, and the asset protection. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And we could just going to compare based on what kind of role do you want in this kind of investments, right? Is it going to be the active role that you're seeking for? Are you going to seek for a passive role? For most of you who are attending today, you are busy professional, busy business owners. If you are looking at something that you don't have to babysit or you don't have to manage, that's what we're going to compare right now, because technically rental investment is a passive investment. So let's take a look at the acquisition process. So for single family, if you're trying to do it, looking at the listings, right? So that's the first point, that you engage with a realtor, you start looking at listings, you have your criteria that this is particular market that I want to look into, this is my budget, maybe 200K, and that's where I want to be. And then you start looking at these listings. Not every time the numbers actually work out, but there is some way you can try to project and calculate that returns to see that what is the cash flow that I'm going to get, what is the appreciation, looking at the market, what is the kind of appreciation, what is that money's growth that is going to be. So you kind of try to do on your own. Most of the times I don't see people using calculators to project this growth, the IRRs that for their money, and they don't know what their exactly the business plan is. It's a business, right? Rental real estate is a business. So you have to have a business plan, you have to have your projections, you have to have the entry criteria and the exit criteria for this business, right? But if at all you're doing that, that's really great. So once you identify, go through this hundreds of listing and identify that okay, these are the houses that you want to look at, you go attend the showings, you look at those houses. Sometimes you are able to put an offer on that. Sometimes you get in, sometimes you don't, right? There's a lot of competition in this market. With multifamily syndication, it is really a little bit top heavy, because your evaluation process, if you are a passive investor, you would spend that time in reviewing that investment. Now you're physically not going anywhere, you're not going online looking all these properties, but you actually have the syndication team who has done all this groundwork for you. So they are the one who have looked into these hundreds of listing. There are more sophisticated tools of underwriting, that is calculating those returns and creating that business plan, because of course for them it's more serious business, right? They are more professional at it. There are more professional teams helping them to do that. So that underwriting process where they're calculating and projecting their returns, projecting their investor returns, they are the one who have done that groundwork for you. For you, it's about reviewing that investments, right? I mean, it could be tough to how to review that investment. And that's what we are trying to do with Think Outside the Stocks, to take you a step further every time so you can be confident about reviewing the investments, right? So it's little top heavy. You will review the investments. You will, look at if the returns make sense to you, what is the like a hold period, does that sense make sense to me? You will review the team, their kind of the track record, what they have done before, have they completed complete cycles or not. So you will look at that. And there's several other due diligence, by the way. When I look at an investment and I bring it to the table in front of you, I have hundreds of criterias to go through and evaluate the investment and the team and everything. Also, I underwrite these deals. I do my own calculations to make sure that the numbers that they are showing, they're projecting, how close I can get to those numbers. So that's the process. Think Outside the Stocks follows when bringing these investments to you. There is a vetting process. It's really thorough process that I follow before you see these deals, right? So that's about the acquisition process. That's the difference between the multifamily and the single family investments. The loan process, right? Now, being a single family landlord, it is really you who are you are requesting that loan, you are applying for that loan. So first of all, you have to do the mortgage rate shopping. You have to provide your financial statements, your assets liability kind of a list. They will look at the ratio, the expense ratio and all that. They will underwrite you and they'll provide you some rate, right? The single family rental rates are a little bit different because that's an investment property than what your mortgage rates are for your primary home. There'll be personal credit checks on your account. And there's, for one unit, you will have to move into one loan. So if you are purchasing, say, five single family homes, separate homes, there will be five different loans for those properties, versus if you have like a 5-unit plus multifamily property, there's just going to be one loan on it. It's not going to be 5 different loans. And think about it, when it comes to the investment, the syndication team, if they are moving into like 300 plus units, that's just going to be one loan again. That again, for the passive investors though, this is something that you are not on that loan. Your credit checks are not getting executed to be on that loan, because the syndication team, they are the one on the loan. There's a role called KP, which is the key principal, who is also on the loan, but passive investors are never on the loan. So there is no liability when it comes to the loan if something happens, right? Another difference between the loan is recourse and non-recourse, right? So in case of default, if you are a single family earner, you are the personal guarantee on it. Your credit is impacted if something happens, the market goes down. Like for example, 2008, a lot of people had to go belly up and they had to come out of their investments, right? Their credits did get impacted. Even if it was your primary home, your credits got impacted. If there is a default, the collateral gets collected, and if there is still some delta, your personal assets could get collected too. So that's what happens with the single family. When it comes to the multifamily, as I was indicating, that the syndication team is doing all that mortgage shopping, finding a good rate, providing the financial, their credit checks. They're the one who are closing on that. So you pretty much, when you did that top heavy work where you evaluated that investments and you decided to move into it, you are pretty much, it's like a black box. You don't get to be involved in all this kind of formalities processes. And in case of default, right, this is a non-recourse. What it means is that there is no impact on your personal credit. So there is no impact on personal credit at all. And the collateral gets collected and the personal assets cannot be collected in this case. So lender cannot go behind the syndication team as well. Of course, there are some bad bar carve outs. They will be more involved in the process, as in why is it not performing and things like that. But that's the difference, the recourse and non-recourse loan, that's the main difference. And that your credit is not impacted, that's another thing that's important to keep it in mind. The next comparison, right? The cost of investment itself. So say, for example, you have found a single family home, which is about 200K, and 25% typically is the down payment on the investment. When it comes to the banks, they would like you to see 25% as a down payment. So say that's 50,000 is your down payment. In the syndication also, typically it is 50,000 minimum to move into an investment. Some syndication would have either 75K or a little bit less than 50K, but 50K is what I have seen normally. So 50K in terms of single family home, if it is a 200K, and that's kind of a typical expectation. You can't find less than 200K home. especially if you're looking into the markets around you. On top of that, you will have some additional costs because there's going to be home inspection, there's going to be termite inspection, there are additional costs for the processing of the loan. So there's going to be home appraisal cost, credit report, the origination cost for the loan itself, or the points in the loan. They're going to be title insurance. If you are buying, sometimes the buyer, the seller kind of pays it, but sometimes it's 50-50, but there is that 1% cost of the total value. So the cost could land you between 3% to 6% of that purchase price, which is the 200K. So your cost, even though your principal was going into it was just 50K, you could spend about 56 to 62K just moving into the single family. And in multifamily, there is no additional cost. Of course, all this origination costs and everything, that's kind of the in the business plan for the syndication team, and it's already accounted for, right? So if when you put in your 50K, your principal is 50K, and your rate of return is based on 50K, versus in single family homes, your principal is 50K and 6 to 12,000 is just your additional cost to it, right? On the whole period, right? Typically, the whole period, people have different strategies when it comes to single family home. But if you try to sell it before 5 years, it might not make sense because you still have that about 6 to 8% selling cost. So for you to even kind of break even and make some more money, typically you still have to be in the investment about 5 years. 5 to 10 years is kind of a safe period. People do look at kind of owning it long term, that they will just own it for 30 years, pay it off, and have kind of a retirement income ongoing. In multifamily, typically 3 to 5 years is the whole period. Sometimes some syndication teams, some investments especially, you will see the 7 year as well. But that's typically what it is. And the sales cost, the cost of closing that entire thing, to you, to passive investor, is again zero. So your IRR, the rate of return, is going to be based on the 50,000 investment that you have. Again, just want to take a quick pause here. If you want to ask some questions, please ask them in the Q&A box. I will look at it at the end and I will answer those questions for you. So please go ahead and put your questions up there. Just going to move on from there. The next comparison, right? The next area. So we did look at the acquisition part of it. The next area we're going to look at the renting and the management and the maintenance of these assets, right? When you want to rent a single family home, you have, if you are hiring somebody, a realtor or somebody, or property management team, they will, it will cost you about 1 month's rent. Some goes to the buyer's agent, some goes to the seller's agent, right? So the 1 month rent is the typical cost. Plus recurring, you will see the property taxes or the insurance that you're paying on top of it. In multifamily, you don't have, there is property taxes, insurance being paid from the business plan, but your 50,000 investment, that is the 50,000 investment, right? In terms of occupancy costs, what is an occupancy cost? Your rental does not get rented on day one. If suppose there is a delay, right? If suppose you couldn't rent it for 15 days or a month's period, you will have to still bear the cost of the mortgage, the electricity, the gas, water, sewage, all that cost, right? In terms of managing this property, you either hire a property management, which could cost you about 6 to 8% of your rent, or you could purchase a home warranty, or you'll have to pay for these maintenance visits, the expenses for recurring expenses when it comes to the maintenance items. If the toilet is broken, if the faucet is leaking, those kind. And typically, even if you purchase a warranty, $60-70 is just that initial cost where somebody is coming and looking at what's really happening and solving that problem for there. Capital expense could take a lot. Periodically, after like 4 or 5 years or something, you will start seeing at least something coming out, because typically these are the old houses, and even if you're purchasing a new house, maybe it will last a little bit longer. But an AC can break down, heater can break down, the appliances could, you might need replacement. The roof, something happens, even if it's covered by the insurance, suppose the hailstorm occurs, right? You still have that copay that you want to contribute in. So those are the kind of things that come in picture. And also there are some other damages too, right? Multifamily, when it comes to the renting and management cost, it's really, as a passive investor, it's not your personal responsibility. It's accounted for by the syndication team. They have dedicated professional teams managing it. So there is a dedicated property management team, there is a dedicated maintenance crew. I mean, we have lived into apartments some point in our time. We know that if we had an issue, we just picked up a phone and we called the maintenance crew. We called the property management team on the line, right? So that's essentially all integrated in their business plan. They are the one who are taking care of it. They're looking at marketing expenses, maintenance costs, the capital expenses. They have reserves for that, so they actually have accounted for that. So that's how the maintenance management works for the multifamily. The As far as possible, as a passive investor, you don't even have to look at all these things what's parallelly going on. This is all taken care by the team, and all you do is you start getting that automatic cash flow in your bank account. So you did your top heavy kind of work where you did the due diligence before moving into the investments, and you looked at if it is right for you or not. And now you have that cash flow, that income that's coming from all these rental incomes or other incomes in the multifamily business, automatically showing into your bank account. So I was just listening to somebody, so today they're saying that it's like your pajama money. You sit in your pajama and yes, money is still flowing. That's exactly what's happening. And when it's upside, when this property gets sold, you again will see that money trickling in your bank account. In terms of the cash flow and the break-even point, when you are looking at single-family home, it's either 0% occupancy or 100% occupancy. You cannot cash flow when it's 0%. There is nothing in between. You can't rent like for 50% of occupancy, right? So 0%, no cash flow. 100%, it cash flows. Yes, sometimes it doesn't even cash flow depending on what market you are in, because things are getting really expensive. The rental properties are getting really expensive. In terms of multifamily, because it's multiple units, so even if it's not 100% occupied, it can still cash flow. And typically the break-even point is kind of lower. So sometimes syndication teams will be breaking even at 70%. They will tell you in the business plan that what is that break-even point, and if they don't tell you, you can ask them, what is your break-even point really? Let's move on to the control over decisions and access to that capital, right? When it comes to single family, you can move into the investment and out of it at your will, because you are the only owner, right? It's not like you're partnering. If you're to partner with 4 other partners, you'll have to ask the 3 other partners that if you want to move in or now or out or not. But it's really the investor decision in terms of single family. So if you want to access your capital, you want to sell it off and you want to come out of it, or if you want to like refinance, that's really up to you. That decision is up to you. But in case of multifamily, typically there is that lock-in period. So your money is locked in for that 3 to 5 years or whatever that duration of that investment is. And your control, the decision-making capacity is with syndication team. And also think about it that the syndication team does have the expertise in this entire model. So they are the one in better position to take decisions about what they need to do about this, right? So for example, if they have a business plan that goes out for 5 years, and if those numbers, they could achieve it in 3.5 years, they're going to take decision that, okay, can we sell it out and come out of it and return, the money to investors, or can they refinance and return your capital at least back to the investors? So they're the one who are going to take that decision. Does that mean that you don't have access to that money at all? Well, in case of emergency, there are ways to do it. I mean, you will have to compromise on the growth, the returns that you have, because the real growth and of the money occurs at the end of that cycle. So suppose, out of that 5 years, in third year, you just have absolute family emergency and you just need that chunk of 50K in your life right now, right? So there are several options that, either you can find somebody who can replace that spot with 50K, or syndication team will put it out and say that to their existing other passive investors, saying that, does anybody want to purchase this spot? So that will happen, or they will try to get that themselves. But again, it's not a hard and fast that you will get your money, but in case of emergency, there are ways that you can access that money. So that's the next comparison. If you have any questions, please, just a reminder, keep posting in there. Um, so there's, I can see that, there's some interaction going on. Or if you want to just pass on a joke, just put a joke in the question Q&A and I'll read it out, right? Appreciation versus market cycle. How does this impact in single family and multifamily, right? A little bit snapshot about the whole stock market comparison versus the real estate investments, right? I'm considering in here the entire real estate and basically based on REITs, just kind of give you a good glimpse of what real estate and stock market compares, right? So if you look back, a few years back, we have about the compounding rate of with the stock market about 5.5%, and the CAGR for real estate investments is about 8.7%. So that's comparison with the stock market. But let's see how the single family versus multifamily, how do they perform against each other, right? So for example, 2008, everybody's very concerned. I mean, when they want to move into an investment, especially real estate, 2008, you just can't stop thinking about it, isn't it? What really happened in 2008, right? So in 2008, if you can see the first graph here, which shows the delinquency in single family. When there is a delinquency, there is going to be more and more this, people are not able to sustain the mortgages and they're just going to go belly up, right? So 12% was the single family home delinquency during 2008. But if you look at the multifamily, how many people could not pay? How many, multifamily syndicators or people who were investing in multifamily could not pay? That was really, really low. So even if you look at like 2008, it's less than 1%. It's been always less than 1%. So that kind of shows that, the single family and multifamily can sustain better than single family in recession. And, there are a couple of other factors to it too. But come to think about it, single family homes, when people, they were losing their homes, where were they going? They were going and moving to the apartment complex because that they still needed a place to stay. It's not a want, it's a need. So they did move around and they went to the multifamily, and multifamily sustaining that cycle. So that's how the appreciation cycles work. For single family, it's dependent on market. And another aspect of it, right? Single family home, when you're trying to sell it, the value of the home depends on what is the value of the home down the street that got sold before you, or in the period that's trailing that 6 months period. But for multifamily, there is a concept called forced appreciation that comes in play. So multifamily, the valuation of multifamily is pretty independent in itself because it's a commercial asset. It's based on the net operating income. And I'm just gonna, show you a little bit by numbers that how does it work. Say, for example, there is a property value of $10 million in multifamily, say 100 units or 200 units, right? Suppose 20% was the equity that both LP, the passive investors, and the syndication team contributed to it. 8 million loan was from the bank. And the net operating income is income minus expenses. Suppose, this whole operating income for this property for the year is 1.4 million minus the 400K expenses. That's about 1 million. That's without the debt service. The net operating income and the cap rate is always calculated without the debt service. That's a mortgage payment, right? The cap rate is a very interesting formula. Cap rate is basically your net operating income divided by your current value. So for this $10 million property, when 1 million is your operating income, that gives the cap rate of 10%. Now, simplicity purpose, I have just kept the numbers very easy to understand, right? So understand that this is a 10% cap rate. Suppose there is a little bit increase in the income and a little bit decrease in the expenses, right? The expenses from 400 to go down to 300, and the income goes from 1.4 to 1.5. What happens to the cap rate? So the new value calculated, again, it's kind of a reverse formula, right? So net operating income divided by cap. So 1.2 million is now the new operating income divided by 10%. So now the value of the property is 12 million. It didn't even look at that what is the other apartment complex value down the road is, because the net operating income of the apartment itself defined its own value. So with that 12 million, you invested 2 million in it. I mean, you would say that, okay, it's just 20% increase, right? 10 million property went from 10 million to 12 million, but it's actually you invested just 2 million in it, your equity was just 2 million together, and that 2 million turned to be 4 million. So that's almost 2x. That's 200% returns. So that's how, first of all, it's not tied to the market cycle. In recession, it has performed better when it comes to multifamily. And also, due to the valuation, because it's an independent valuation, not market based, you still have better chances of the growth in terms of multifamily. So that's about the valuation. Now let's talk about the scalability, right? What is really scalability? If you are to suppose you are trying to increase your income, your cash flow, so you can quit your job, right? So to come up to your level of income, say if you want to go move in, and the cash flow is like say about 500 even in one rental property, to get say even to 10,000, you will have to invest into 20 properties, right? What is the scalability of it? If you are managing one rental unit, managing that 20 units, that's essentially just multiplying that work by 20, right? But when it comes to multifamily, the economies of scale really work well, because it's now one entire unit, right? That 300 or 400 units in one cohesive unit of that multifamily. First of all, the roof, for example, there's, one roof in each 6 to 12 units kind of buildings by itself, right? So one single family home, one roof, you have to replace one roof, and that's for the one property. But here, about 6 to 12 units share that roof. So that's maintenance, the gets distributed. It's less than what single family would have in terms of percentages. For maintenance and management, the apartment complex, we have lived in it, we have seen that there is a dedicated crew to maintain, to manage the property management. That's possible because this is the huge number of units that they're managing. They can put somebody who's full-time and pay them full-time to manage that. So that dedicated professional crew is available, right? You can't do that. Something goes wrong and you have to search for a plumber, or you search for an AC repair guy. That's really dealing with contractors in single family is a nightmare. When it comes to rehab, for example, if you want to, kind of fix and flip and, increase the value of single family, you have to go at market rate. So you'll go to Home Depot, Lowe's, and something like that. Versus in multifamily, it's a very cost-effective rehab because they purchase in bulk. They would look at this wholesale material, even the appliances, they will have special rate for granite or cabinets or things like that. They will be able to get this at really great deals. And that's essential to keep that cost down of the rehab and have that increase in the net operating income. Again, in terms of professional teams, when it comes to single family, that doing your taxes, doing your asset protection, lawyers, etc., it's quite expensive for one property. But in here, you can in multifamily, you can utilize the professional teams, legal representation, tax representation. It's all included in your cost, right? So that's kind of taken care by the syndication team. You don't have to do anything about it. They simply provide you a K1 at the end of the year, and that's very easy to file your taxes. And as a passive investor, you just take that K1, put it into your taxes, and it's as easy as you can do it by yourself too. We talked about the vacancy that single family versus one multifamily. Even if it's not 100% occupied, it can still cash flow. And in terms of consolidation, right, there is just one insurance, just one mortgage in the entire, that 300 units or whatever big property it is. So from economies of scale, multifamily properties work better too. Let's look at the diversification, right? If you're purchasing a single family home, people tend to, most of the time, higher percentage will tend to purchase around the city around them, because you would still want to have some control. You want to go look at it, what's going on, unless you have that expensive property management team managing it for you. So typically you will be able to do it around you, and there's no like different classes or anything. It's pretty, even if you're diversifying outside of the stock market, yes, you have like a diversified asset now into real estate, but you are still, doing just in single family. In terms of multifamily, you can invest into real estate emerging markets across the country, really. So you can identify that these are the growing cities. For example, Carolinas, it's really going great. Florida is going great. So you will look at what are these growing cities, and there you can choose to invest into the syndication deals, right? So you can do that. And again, within the multifamily asset class, there is different classes. So class A, class B, class C, simply put, more newer buildings, the downtown buildings, which is like really posh apartment complexes, those are typically class A's. Something which is like really old and needs a lot of maintenance, like 1960s properties, class C, and something in between is class B. So you could do diversification across the markets. You can do diversification across the different classes as well. So that's the diversification part of it. In terms of just continuing, let's take a look at tax benefits. So we did look at multiple ways of this multifamily and single family are different. When it comes to tax benefit in single family, there is something that's called depreciation of the house, that you can take depreciation, and depreciation is not an actual loss, but it's a paper loss. So that's essentially what it says is that whatever the value of the structure, you can depreciate it for 27.5 years and take that loss as a paper loss every year. So if you're getting, say, suppose 10,000 as your cash flow, you can reduce that, and then the rest of the money is what you have to pay taxes on, right? In case of multifamily, though, there are three level of tax benefits. There's, of course, that depreciation of the building that can be achieved. There is a study called cost segregation, which provides really, better depreciation than what the depreciation itself can provide you. And then with the new Tax Cuts and Jobs Act law in 2017, you can actually take this cost segregation as bonus depreciation in first year. And don't worry about all these terms, because taxes is a really complex topic. Essentially, the point I'm trying to make is that there is a lot of depreciation that could be available to you. So in case of, tax itself, it's a very deep topic, and it will take another whole day to talk about it. All you have to remember is that there is that paper losses, more paper losses that could be written off for you, that you can either take completely off of the cash flow that you're getting from multifamily investments. And if you don't use it, all of it, and it gets carried forward to next year, you can use it next year, and you can keep on using that losses and reduce your income till you completely utilize that, right? Cost segregation, just a little bit kind of touch on that topic. What exactly is cost segregation? When the single family home allows just to depreciate the entire structure, cost segregation is a separate study, which is, syndication team often do it, paying some extra dollars to it. There is a different schedule for depreciating assets, like for example, interior assets like carpet and ceiling fans, appliances, they depreciate faster in 5 years. Outside assets depreciate in 15 years, and so on and so forth. You can accelerate that depreciation, and you can take it, like for example, if there is more money that's put into this interior assets, you can take all that depreciation as a part of cost segregation study, and with the bonus depreciation you can apply that, all of it, in the first year. So that's essentially what that tax benefits are. To go into much more detail, I will try to have another session where I'll try to bring in actually experts of this area, where we can talk about the taxes in detail, right? Again, this bonus depreciation with the Tax Cuts and Job law, it is not going to stay there forever. It will kind of start scaling back, till 2027 is what it's going to scale back to. So it's really beneficial right now to move into the multifamily investments right now. If you are, in addition, if you are a qualified real estate professional, doesn't have to be a licensed real estate agent or something, but there's some certain criteria. If suppose one of your spouse is not working and you qualify for that bonus the qualified real estate profession, you can actually take this whole depreciation and apply it on the active income of your spouse. So for example, if 50K is what you invested, and even if you get 50% of it as a paper loss, not actual loss, say you get that 25,000 as a loss that you can write off on your spouse. It can be taken off from your spouse's income, W-2 income, and then your taxes are eventually is going to get a positive impact from that, right? If you want to know more about the qualified real estate professional, talk to your CPA, or I will also try to get some CPA who can talk about this topic, right? There are multiple topics that I have planned for this education, the continuation of this education series. If you want any particular topic, just ping me in the chat window that, hey, Madhvi, I want to know more about this. And I'll try to get somebody who is expert in that area who can talk about that. Let's talk about asset protection. Why is asset protection really important, right? If in a single family home that you are renting out, suppose something happens, like some guests visit and they trip over the staircase, or somebody's walking in through your driveway and it's just slippery and somebody trips and slips, right? They can sue you. They can come and sue you. So typically, the lawyers advise to move in your real estate, your rental real estate, into an LLC, and there's kind of a lot of nitty-gritty details about it. So you purchase a property, create an LLC, that's another expenses. You move that property into the LLC kind of, and then start managing, keep the expenses and the income kind completely separate, do your financials kind completely separate, and you manage that inside of that LLC. So there's a lot of documentation that needs to be done in that, and that's what the asset protection in single families. When it comes to the multifamily and the asset protection in multifamily syndication, each of this investment is kind of standalone in itself. So even the syndication team will create a complete new LLC. They'll call it whatever, apartment ABC LLC, right? So within that LLC, the protection is kind of included. So you are going just as a limited partner. You're not liable if something happens and somebody sues, because of this property. Even the syndication team is not impacted because this is a completely standalone LLC. So there is going to be another, LLC within the LLC. Sometimes they create kind of a structure too, where there's a property management is a completely different LLC. The syndication team is a different LLC which are managing that asset. So that's essentially the protection that's automatic for you when it comes to multifamily syndication. Now let's talk about the final thing, which is about active participation, right? So the roles in single family, when you are trying to look into the single family, we looked at all these multiple aspects of it. You are the one who's responsible for finding that deal, getting the loan process, financial management, renting process, managing the property, maintenance, expenses, the sale of the property, finding a kind of a buyer for the property. And if there is a tenant turnaround every time, you are the one who's responsible for that. So you're pretty much responsible for everything. When it comes to the syndication, that whole process of finding and doing the calculations or maintaining the property, managing the property, acquisition, tax process, professional management, getting the lawyers, etc., closing as per the business plan, that's all to the syndication team. Your investment responsibility as a passive investor is first of all to attend that webinar or overview that the syndication team is providing you. After that, you will do your kind of due diligence, see if that investment makes sense for you or not. And really after that, once you're committing into that investment, you literally sit back and you'll start seeing the automatic cash flow in your bank account. You'll receive a newsletter periodically. You'll receive that cash flow. You'll receive the K1, the taxes, which is done for you again in your hand, year after year. And when the final investment is closed, you will see the upside show up in your bank account too. So essentially what you're doing is just analyzing that investment is right for you and moving into it, deciding that. And after that, everything is pretty much on autopilot, right? So that's completely passive for you. In terms of expertise, you're actually leveraging the expertise from the syndication team. They have been in this business for a really long time. If you are trying to become a landlord, it's a really competitive market out there. The house prices are getting really expensive. The expertise that you need, maybe first time you don't have that expertise, and there's a lot of time and effort needed for that. But when it comes to multifamily syndication, you're literally, leveraging at no cost somebody else's experience, and they're the one who are committing their effort, their time, and their expertise to the success of these investments, and you're getting the outcome from that particular asset, that particular investment. So really, the final thought about it, This is our tenant horror story. This is what happened to one of the investment property, the rental real estate. The tenant left this place in a trash. To just get the junk out of this house took about $5,000 just to haul this junk away, and to bring it back to its real glory. It took another, I mean, we spent about 12-15,000 just to bring it back to its glory so somebody can stay in here. I mean, look at this toilet. This toilet was, it felt like, it's going to fall off the garage floor. There was like a small leak that, they never paid attention or never wanted to report on that for some reason, but this is how they lived into it. So it takes just that one bad experience for the tenant, wrong tenant, to get into your house, and your past future cash flow is going to get completely wiped out. Your appreciation can get impacted too, right? So there's a lot of to deal with when it comes to single family rentals, when it comes to being a landlord. All this kind of, I mean, if you have to go through the eviction process, for example, or these damages, the pet damages, all that stuff that you have through the rentals, that's just a nightmare. So it just takes, remember, it just takes one experience to happen like that. So if you're trying, planning to become a landlord, just consider all these aspects, the side by side comparison of multifamily syndication, being a passive in it, and being into a single family rental, right? So what is the investment objective in multifamily, right? You're looking at, when you're trying to move into investment, what are you looking at? Whether it comes to being a landlord in single family or the multifamily, you want something which is high growth, right? It is tied to the lower volatility, and it's truly diversified. It's giving you maximum tax benefit, and it's completely passive for you, because if you have that one extra hour, you want to share it with your families, spend time with your kids, right? So when it comes to that multifamily syndication, these are the advantages of it. First of all, it has provided above average returns. Looking at last 15 years or so, it has provided consistent 13 to 15% annualized rate of return, which is better than or compared to what single family could give you. It is of course backed by that real asset, which is not tied to the market volatility as much as the single family home. It has, as good as provides you very truly diversified way of investing outside of the stock market and also in real estate. It has multiple tax benefits, and it's complete. I cannot insist enough on being the passive part of it, that it's really, you move into the investment and it's completely passive after that for you. So how does it pay to be a passive investor in multifamily syndication? You get the passive cash flow from the distribution, first of all. The rent or the other income that's being paid off, that's paying the part of the mortgage, the principal and the interest. So it's building that equity slowly. That again happens in the real the single family rental as well. You have more tax benefits. Tax benefits kind of saves more money, put more money in your back pocket, and you have that force valuation, appreciation, the valuation of the property, that again puts more money into your packet. And with all that, you will get significant upside at the end. So multifamily investment, if you're looking for a completely hassle-free passive investment for you, that's really what it is for you. If you are thinking of going on vacation, for example, ask yourself that question: if I'm a single family landlord, can I just go peacefully on vacation without receiving a call or something? You can literally, with multifamily, be on that vacation, sit back and enjoy your pina colada, and just have somebody else manage these investments for you. So that's a quick comparison about what we all talked about, and what is the advantage of the both areas and how it compares to it. In terms of, when it comes to multifamily, this is that multiple level of benefits that you're getting with investment. So just an example of what a multifamily investment would look like. Suppose this, Arbor Lake Apartments, 212 units, Class C. It'll tell you what class investment it is. It's 20 million in price. Getting a loan of 4% for 10 years, 25% LTV. It'll tell you what kind of investment it is. It'll tell you your preferred return. So 8% is cash on cash that they're providing. Total returns 80%, that's 1.8x. The IRR is 16% to move in with. So they will tell you exactly what this investment will look like. Does that mean it's guaranteed returns? No, that's what their plan is. That's what they're going to try to strive and achieve that, right? So they will also tell you what that exit criteria is, and tell you if you invested say 100K, what is your return is going to be. So that's essentially what multifamily syndication and comparison of the single family rental is. If you are an accredited investor, you get more opportunities to invest in it. So if you're you're interested in that, just let us know. And also, I'm just going to take this time to kind of launch a poll. You have some questions in front of you in terms of helping me, that what kind of education are you more interested in moving on. And just tell me, if you're interested in knowing more about multifamily syndication and finding this investment so you can invest in these deals. I will keep you posted, because you need to tell me that you're interested in investing. I cannot just come and approach and share with you that these are the investments coming. There are certain SEC regulations. So unless you are an investor in my database, you will not see my investments. You will continue to see all these paid educational events, but you will not see the investment. So the problems that I'm going to try to address here, which I faced personally, is finding that right asset class in real estate where to invest, finding that right education. So I'm providing you multiple level of free education. We think outside the stocks every other Thursday, 6 o'clock is when I will bring more and more education to you, and also waiting those investment opportunities so you can invest in those opportunities, right? So that's where essentially what I'm bringing to you. We are focused on, with the Infinity Banking System and the investment, we are focused on something that you want to do, and you don't want to do something that you don't want to do or don't need to do or can't afford to do. Our approach is to increase your net worth, reduce your income tax liability, and kind of increase your monthly cash flow, so while keeping it completely passive. So with that, I think there are more questions coming in. So I'm just gonna take these questions. I own a piece of land and want to build a two-family home on it. Is it a good move? It's a again, it's just a perspective from my side. If you own a land and if you want to go and doing all that, you are personally responsible for all that, right? So you are going to be moving into finding a builder, and ask yourself what kind of expertise that you need. Do you have that kind of expertise? Where can you seek those kind of expertise, right? So there is a lot of calculation goes behind it. If you want to do it as a business, create a business plan, that's the kind of involvement that you need, right? So it's up to you if you want to have that land, sell it off, or have somebody else bring in that multifamily units to that land, or sell it off and use that money to invest into multifamily property. So it's really depends on how active participation that you need for that, right? So if it is an active versus passive, if you want to be completely passive and have that time available for you, that's something that I would recommend to consider when you're evaluating it, right? Again, it's just my perspective, just my perception. I mean, for you, it could be completely different. For somebody else, it could be completely different. If someone invests 50K and exit after 5 years, do we get to share an appreciation? Yes, Sachin. So there, like I shared, there is multiple ways that you get paid. During the time that is invested, you're getting the cash flow from all the kind of income. So it's either the rental that's being collected, or even the extra charges, right? Even somebody's paying for storage, for example, there is a garage or something, the storage or the parking spot or anything that they have, all that extra income, you will get paid from that cash flow. And once that exists out, for example, in the past example that I was considering, right? 8% was the cash flow on 100K, right? So if you'll get that 8,000 every year for the 5 years, so say 40,000 is what your cash flow income is. Suppose they sell it out, and now when they're returning your money back, that 100K, there is an upside of 40,000. So you will get that additional 40,000 at the end of that 5-year cycle. So you got your 40,000 during the cycle, 40,000 at the end of it. So together you got, when you invested 100K into it, 180,000 is what you got back. And that was that 16% or whatever that IRR on the previous slide I showed. I hope that answers that questions. If you guys think that I haven't answered your question, please feel free to ask more questions. if you can run, please run number for 50K, for example, how would an average typical cash flow look like? Sachin, I think in that example, did that answer your question? If it did answer, please say yes, either in chat window or in Q&A. But exactly what I said in just some time back, few minutes back too, that's exactly the example of 100K. You can divide that by 2, and that's your 50K example, right? So 50K will give you maybe typically, in that case, about 4,000 annually cash flow. That's your cash flow from income from the rental, and instead of 40K you'll get 20,000. So on a 50,000, that's what you will see the numbers look like. Okay. uh, can can someone with work visa participate? Yes, I think there are multiple ways that you can participate, but if you have specific in mind, get in touch with me. There is certain limitation based on your net worth. There is accredited investors and non-accredited investors. The exposure of the investments based on accredited and non-accredited is different. Accredited investors would have more exposure to some of these investments, but does that mean that it limits the other investors? It doesn't. So just book that call. There is in chat window my link to schedule a call with me, and we can talk based on your own personal scenario. Thank you so much for that questions. Shrikant, please give an example of a recent deal. If someone invested 50K, total amount returned to the investor after 5 years in best, medium, and low scenarios. I think that looks like a favorite question by everyone. I think I addressed that. I looked at the numbers in there. The low and medium, let's look at that, right? So in this case, the business plan for them says that they want to return 1.8x, right? So if you invested 100K, they want to return that, the 80K on top of it, right? So what's going to happen? What if they're not able to do that, right? They're going to try their best to do that. It's not a guaranteed, right? But that's the business plan they're planning to implement, right? They're increasing their rent capacity. They're maybe putting in some rehab, some value adds where they are increasing that rent by $100 per unit or something like that, right? During this COVID time, for example, that's a classic example, right? That they couldn't increase that rent. So what happened typically, the investments which were supposed to be completed in 5 years, maybe they'll take extra few months, maybe they'll take 7 months or 10 months or 1 year even. So, you will see a little bit extension, but they'll try to implement that business plan for you and, give that kind of returns. Sometimes in most of the times, they are very conservative about it. So when they say that 1.8x, they might actually be able to give you 1.9 because they have written these numbers very conservatively. And that's what I like to see. I do the underwriting myself when I put these investments in front of you. And I like to look at really conservative when it comes to all these numbers, because numbers could be really fancy, right? They could really tell that it's a 10% return or something like that. But that's what I like to see, how conservatively they have calculated their returns, so they can have more probability of providing what they're saying to you. So that's typically what the scenario is. Yes, so everybody, looks like we have reached to the end of our questions and answers. And meanwhile, I'm just going to put this out there. If you want to get in touch with me, and also have a free ebook for you, how to think outside the stocks, like top 1% of America. Just go to that link, bit.ly with Think ebook, and you can download it there. And if you want to have that free strategy session with me, please come in and schedule a call with me, or just let me know. So with that, I'm gonna conclude this session today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. I really appreciate you spending this weekday evening with me, with Think Outside the Stocks. And I would love for you to come and join my continuation of this series, where every other Thursday, I will bring you new topics every time. Thank you so much again for joining. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.